Hey, what is up guys, JayTX here. This is going to be my 0.3 updated League starter guide. The main difference between the previous league and this league is this time we're going to be running as a Tactician from the Mercenary. Previously we ran Deadeye. Deadeye is still insanely good this patch, and if you were to run any other class for this, I would probably go Deadeye still. Now the reason why we want to try out Tactician this time is because of the changes to the Ascendancy. There were some pretty powerful nodes that they added, especially with the banner rework, potentially allowing Tactician to be one of the best ascendancies in the game. Obviously, we don't have the full skill tree yet, and we don't have the full understanding of how banners will work with the new system, but I think with the other ascendancy nodes already, this is a really powerful class. Now the build's playstyle revolves using Spiral Volley for clear, and using a snipe for your single target damage. You also have Barrage to amp up your snipe, and also we discovered this patch that if you use the Tornado Shot, you can shotgun your Barrage with Snipe to do some pretty crazy damage. So this is like essentially the bread and butter of the build. We're going to be using Snipe for single target, Spiral Volley for clear. Each time you generate Frenzy charges, you can buff up your Barrage, and also it makes your Spiral Volley do a heck of a lot more damage. For each Frenzy you get, it's 30% more damage, and then if you spend any Frenzy charges at all, pretty much doubles the damage. What I quickly realized with the Deadeye version of the build is, you get to a point where you have so many Frenzy charges and so much damage that the Ascendancy really isn't that necessary for doubling the spending. And because we are a DOT based build, the repeated Barrage doesn't really help us either, because all of the Barrage attacks, or the subsequent attacks, they hit a lot less than the initial first snipe, right? So your bleed normally will be the largest on your first snipe, which isn't penalized by the Barrage multiplier. So this is why we've tried to transition into a Tactician. Especially with the snipe changes giving a damage bonus for freezing or heavy stunning an enemy. I think Tactician, it can be incredibly powerful for abusing that, because we get 40% more immobilization buildup, which affects freezes, heavy stuns, pins, and electrocution. Also, it makes for a really nice playstyle because you'll be permanently locking down bosses so they can't move either between your freeze, your pin, or your heavy stun. So I think the playstyle is going to be quite smooth for fighting bosses. So I'll be starting Mercenary, going into Tactician as a bleed bow. I've redone the bleed bow tier list this league, so I still think Ranger is still an S tier. I think Tactician is also up there in S tier. Yeah, then you have the A tiers. I think Huntress, Mercenary, and Witch. All of these can have potential to be a S tier if you have enough investment. But as a league starter, I'm not sure about the viability and getting the right pieces of gear. They're all still really good choices for Bleed Bow, especially with Witch Hunter getting the 100 weapon swap passive node. That could be insane, having pretty much a dedicated clear and a dedicated single target setup. But this is just what my thoughts are for a Bleed Bow tier list. Quickly go over the Tactician Ascendancy node changes and why they're so good for us now. So the big wording here is 40% more immobilization buildup. This new node pretty much allows us to quickly ramp up frozen, pinned, heavy stun, or electrocuted, because these all count as immobilized, and it's pretty crazy because we need it for snipe to do giga damage. Having this just pretty much means we'll build it up a lot quicker than if we didn't have it. The other thing is the right where we want them notable passive. So now the previous one that gave pin, that's been moved onto this node, so it lets you pin targets with projectile damage, and also makes pin targets unable to do any actions. So pretty much it's like a stun. Really good because pretty much they combine two ascendancies into one, and then you also get a new one. The other really big one is the whoever pays best notable. So this is the banner notable. This now gives you 5 glory per second. So before it was valid. They reworked the system now, and it removes the limit of banners you can place. Depending on how good this notable is, it could be insanely strong for having high uptime on Defiance banner or War banner. Defiance banner gives you 30% movement speed, War banner gives you, I think, 25% more damage. It's a pretty damn strong Ascendancy node if we're using banners. If banners turn out to be still kind of clunky, there's a lot of other choices for the Ascendancy to go as well. You could just go polish that armor instead. Moving on to some of the gems, one of the things teased in the trailer was Perfected Endurance. This is really powerful for us because one of the problems in the previous build was generating frenzy charges in boss fights, so specifically stuff like Arbiter or King of the Mists. With this node, you can add it to your snipe, and because snipe is a timing skill, each time you hit a perfect snipe, you generate an endurance charge, which gets converted into a frenzy charge because of the Resonance keystone. If you didn't know, Resonance is a keystone in a tree that changes how your frenzy generation works. So instead of generating endurance charges, they get converted into frenzy charges. So each time we generate endurances, it gets turned into frenzies. So pretty much the main focus will be to generate endurance charges on this build. And that's why Perfected Endurance is a perfect skill gem for that, allowing us to generate those endurance charges in single target. Now, the other skill that's been kind of data mined from the Chinese league or the Chinese playtest is Splinter, Splinter 3. Previously, Splinter was just this single line here, which gave 15%, so that's actually been buffed up to 20% of breaking armor based on the damage you deal, or physical damage that you deal. With the new gem, it also gives you a endurance charge at a 100% chance when you shatter an enemy's armor. This pretty much combines two skill gems from before, which was Splinter and Break Endurance, into a single gem, and also makes it a 100% chance to generate endurance charge. The Break Endurance currently has a 40% chance to gain endurance charge. This is getting changed to 100%. So this is actually going to be insane for sustaining your frenzies in maps. Pretty much anytime you break armor, you'll get a frenzy charge, and then you can start your spiral volley. This is why you begin to understand why Deadeye is no longer mandatory for a build like this. You can get away with this for a lot of different builds now because there's such an easy way of generating endurance charges, which get converted to frenzies, as long as you have the Resonance keystone. So jumping into PoB now, I'll have a leveling tree from Act 1 all the way into your early endgame. So if you want to have a look at how to level the character, all the trees should be here. Please take everything with a grain of salt though, because there are a lot of changes to the passive tree that we don't know yet. This is still on the 0.2 tree, and expect this to be updated as soon as we get the updated tree. So just keep this in mind as you're building it. You'll still roughly path towards here, mainly just to take your resonance node all the way up there. That's like the one keystone that you'll definitely be going for regardless of any tree changes, but everything else is kind of subject to change with the patch notes. So in terms of Ascendancy, we want to take Suppressing Fire first, then right where we want them, then a solid plan, and finally whoever pays best. So that's the Ascendancy order for the Tactician. Potentially depending on how the banner works out. If we don't like how the banner plays, we just polish that gear instead because it now gives you deflection based on your armor. This PoB also has a notes section telling you what gems to get at what level, especially some notes on when to swap certain gear pieces, especially for your bows. Because you're a mercenary, you start with a crossbow, which is great. It's one of the best weapons to use in the early game anyway. And around level 5, you swap to a bow, and then that's when you start using your bow shot as your main skill. Once you get a bow shot with Chain and Lacerate, and you pick up your Herald of Blood, the clear is actually really damn good, especially early on in the acts, so don't be scared to use Bowshot as your main clearing skill with your Freezing Salvo and Snipe as needed for single target and extra clear. And then at the end of Act 2, start of Act 3, you pick up Rain of Arrows. That'll be your new clearing skill until you get Spiral Volley, and then from there Spiral Volley is what you will use all the way into your maps. I've also included some item sets for early league progression. There are some uniques on this list that you should try aim for if you can. Namely, Edrin's Tusks, which give you 50% chance to inflict bleeding on hit. Really powerful at the start. Combine that with a Splinter Heart early on, if you can buy one, and a Sliver Tongue. If you're playing SSF, just make sure you're upgrading your bow as much as you can early on. Same goes for regular league. But these are some really powerful uniques that you can pick up, so I highly recommend picking them up if you can, especially in Trade League. They make a huge difference to how your leveling experience feels. Otherwise, just make sure to keep upgrading your bow, keep upgrading your quiver, and then picking up a life and flat physical damage on the rest of your gear where possible. This has been my go-to build for the last 2 leagues, and with each version of the build, it seems to get more and more powerful. I think this is going to be the strongest the build's ever going to be, especially with the changes to Snipe. Potentially, because of the Snipe changes, you can use it to now crit as well, on top of the 100% more damage bonus on a frozen or stunned enemy. So towards the end game, you're potentially looking at between 3 to 4 times more damage than the previous version, which also means a 3 times to 4 times bigger bleed on targets. It's actually pretty insane that this is now available as an option to us. I think this build's going to be pretty damn insane with the new gem changes, as well as the new Abyss stuff that comes out. I'm sure there's going to be some really crazy gear that you can get, as well as the additional sockets on items. I'll be streaming the entire Leaguestart on my channel at twitch.tv/JayTX. So if you want to see how the build progresses, and if you have any questions, feel free to drop by and say hi to me there. Hopefully you guys are really excited for a 0.3 league, because I sure am. It looks insane. It's going to be really, really cool discovering all the new items, the new techs, all the new content that's been added to the game. As always, guys, thank you guys so much for watching the video, and I'll catch you in the next one.